It's the end of the world. Actually, it's not that different from what's going on in the world right now, is it? Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and this week we are doing another movie review. This is The Birds, directed by the legendary Alfred Hitchcock, and released in 1963. So, coming off the heels of his first foray into horror, Psycho, and what a great success that was. So he figured he'd do an all-out horror film, because I would consider The Birds probably his first all-out horror film, because a lot of people don't consider Psycho to be horror. I do, but some people don't, you know. But The Birds is certainly a horror film. It's meant to scare you. Even though it might have a little bit of hidden meaning behind it, with like animal rights type of thing, subtext, but yeah, this film is meant to scare you. So the film stars Tippi Hedren in the role of Melanie Daniels, who I believe this was her first acting role. Previously she had done a lot of modeling work and some commercials, and that's where Alfred Hitchcock kind of spotted her. But I think she does a fine job, you know. You would never know that she didn't have really acting experience. She just seems very professional and does a solid job in the lead. The film also stars Rod Taylor, who you might know from The Time Machine, as Mitch Brenner, and Jessica Tandy, who you all probably know from Driving Miss Daisy and Cocoon and stuff like that, as Lydia Brenner, and Veronica Cartwright, who you know probably from Alien and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, as Kathy Brenner. They all do a great job. Great cast, solid acting all the way around. I love how the film kind of starts off as like almost a typical romantic movie or romantic comedy from that era, like something you might find Audrey Hepburn or Marilyn Monroe or Lauren Bacall in or something, you know. It definitely has that feel, and it's kind of similar in the way of Psycho, in a way, where you get caught up in this story, where like in the original Psycho you get caught up with Marion Crane's story of her, you know, stealing the money from the bank, and you know, and here you kind of get caught up in the romance of the story, where Melanie meets this guy, Mitch, at the local pet store. So apparently she likes to go there. She loves animals, she loves birds, you know. We see her hanging out at the pet store at the beginning. And Mitch comes in, very debonair, handsome, charming dude, and he's there looking for lovebirds for his sister Kathy, a little girl. And he mistakenly thinks Melanie works there at the pet shop. But of course she doesn't, but she kind of flirtingly plays along, you know, because she finds this guy handsome and attractive, so she flirts with him, you know. She pretends to work there and starts telling him all about the birds and different species of birds, and you know, and he kind of falls for it for a little bit. But he ends up recognizing her from some of the tabloid stories that she had been in, because I guess she's a wealthy socialite, kind of like Paris Hilton or something, you know. She has a very wealthy father, and there's stories going on about tabloid type of stuff in the papers about her, so he recognizes her eventually, you know, from that. So what happens is, you know, they hit it off, and later on she decides she wants to bring the lovebirds to him, you know, because she finds them attractive, and she wants to hopefully maybe strike up a little romance. So she goes to his apartment to drop off the birds, but finds out that he's overstaying with his parents at the farm in Bodega Bay. And along the way, she meets this young teacher, Anne Hayworth, and apparently she used to date Mitch, so they kind of hit it off and they become good friends. She's a school teacher. Yeah, so you really get caught up in this story, and then you find out from Annie that, they had a really good relationship, but the mother was very overbearing and unapproving, and we see that once we meet Jessica Tandy in the role of Lydia, who does a really good job. She's very, very good in the film, and you really believe that she is the disapproving mother. She wants nothing but the best for her son, and no one less than perfect will do. So yeah. But she does end up taking the boat to Bodega Bay to his house, but along the way on the boat she gets attacked by a bird and nips her in the face. She starts bleeding, and he comes to her rescue and takes her into his house, and then she meets the family, and they all start getting to know each other. And of course, Lydia is disapproving, She's like, who is this girl? I know that you're really attracted to her. I want to know about her. And she knows all about her because of the stories in the paper and all that. So yeah, you start getting into this story with this family and the whole romance of it. And you just kind of see the birds in the background, starting to act strangely and randomly attacking people. And we find out the birds aren't eating, that there's something wrong with the birds, in town. And different species are starting to flock together, which never happens in life, So yeah, it kind of goes on in the background until it starts really becoming the problem, And they start attacking the children at school. And there's a great scene where the birds are hanging out at the playground, and you see them all flocking, sitting on top of the monkey bars, and it's a really creepy scene when you see Melanie checking them out, and you can see that they're kind of like scoping out the scene, getting ready to attack, and they start gathering more and more. So really effective scene there. There's another great scene where Melanie runs to the phone booth, and the birds are starting to attack the phone booth, and they're like smashing the glass and stuff. It's really good. Certain scenes maybe don't quite hold up as well as you would hope, because this was made back in the 60s. Let's face it, they didn't have these special effects like they do nowadays. They didn't have CGI. So certain scenes you can tell where there's just birds flying on a movie screen, and you see like the little kids running away, and you can tell they're running in front of a movie screen, And there's like a few mechanical birds like swooping down and attacking the kids, You can kind of tell a certain scene. Other scenes seem really effective. You can tell they used real birds and real flocks of birds. So yeah, certain scenes are still very effective. There's even surprisingly gruesome death scenes in this film. You see one guy, some gas spills in the ground, and he goes to light a cigar, and he blows up. I'm like, damn, that was pretty intense for an old 60s horror film. And there's one scene where Lydia finds this man sitting on the floor after being attacked by the birds, and you see they poked his eyes right out of his head, and it's like, wow, there's actual gore in the scene. It's the first time I've ever seen gore in a old 60s horror film. And I think this was before the days of Herschel Gordon Lewis and all that. I think Herschel Gordon Lewis started right around there, though. But this was the first time in like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, a director who was so well-renowned and highly regarded, And some people at the time, critics didn't like that, They thought this was like, oh, Alfred Hitchcock's losing his mind, he's doing this schlocky stuff, But this is still a very classy film, with some top-notch acting, it's great storytelling, still got that classic Alfred Hitchcock style. And it's got the great suspense in there. And by the end, when the birds start really flocking together, it starts getting crazy, man, you know. And they attack the school children at the school, and they brutally kill young Annie Hayworth. You know, you see her body laying there, like horrified, you know. By the end, stuff just goes crazy. They start attacking the family, and it all kind of comes down to a head at the ranch in Bodega Bay, and the whole family's trapped inside, and it's almost like a Night of the Living Dead type of situation where the house is just completely surrounded by the birds, and they're trying to hack their way in, they're trying to fight their way in. There's another great scene where the birds come through the bottom of the chimney and out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, you know, they really get you, you know. Very suspenseful, tension-filled scene, and there's great tension and suspense in this film. Definitely, I would put it as one of Alfred Hitchcock's best films. Certainly in the horror genre, and he didn't do many horror films, but today, you know, this is one of the films that they talk about when you talk about Alfred Hitchcock. The Birds is a very, very popular entry in his canon. So it's that way for a reason, because this is a really good film, really solid horror film, and I highly recommend it. So thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.